So there's this lighthouse that you can see from my house, and my mom used to tell me a story about a woman who used to live there. No one lives in it now, but there used to be this young woman in her 20s who lived there like 30 years ago. Apparently she came from a really broken home. Her mom and sister died in a horrible car crash, and her dad was an abusive drug addict. So the harbor master let her live in the lighthouse and paid her a small salary for taking care of it. So she had been living there for a couple months, and that's when she noticed weird things starting to happen. Some of her belongings would occasionally go missing. Like one time she couldn't find her flashlight and she looked for it everywhere. And finally she found it under her bed, which was weird because she knew she had never put it there. But then weirder stuff started to happen.
Hey Slime Squad, thank you for 50k followers and a million likes. Today I'm going to be showing you how to fix your worn out butter slimes. So this one is super stiff and overactivated. It cannot be spread at all. So all I'm doing is adding in some moisturizing cream to melt it down and make it stretchier, and then just reactivating it. It's so simple. You can also use any type of hand cream or any type of lotion. They all work. Some oils too. And yeah, when it passes the spread test, you know you're done.
Storytime of how I found out that my mom was putting our dad's ashes in our food. Yep, our mom would put our dead dad's ashes in our dinner. So basically, after my dad died, my mom showed zero emotion. It's like she really didn't care at all. Like she kind of wanted it to happen. His death was like an unsolved case, and nobody knows how he actually died. And now that I get to think about it, it might have been my mom, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. And if it was her and she sees this video, I don't want to end up like him. Anyways, back to the story. So about a month after he died, she would always post a picture of me and my brother's dinner with the caption, "You'll always be with them." Literally every single night. And honestly, nobody really caught on. All the comments were like, we're praying, this and that. Until one day I was just sitting on the couch and I look over and my mom was pouring something into the mashed potatoes. So I go a little closer and I see her pouring the ashes of my dad into our mashed potatoes. Listen, this story only gets 10 times worse, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my mom was putting my dad's ashes in me and my brother's dinner. Continuing on with the story, after I see her literally pouring my dad's ashes into our mashed potatoes, and I mean, this lady literally sees me staring at her pouring the ashes into our mashed potatoes, and she like doesn't even say anything. I was just, a little shocked. So after that, I just kept quiet until after dinner, and I was mad at my brother that night, so I just let him eat the mashed potatoes. So after dinner, I went up to my mom and asked her why she was putting our dad's ashes in our food. And her exact words were, "Your father was a bad man. He wasn't meant to be here." I said, "What does that have to do with you putting his ashes in our dinner?" She goes, "It will just cleanse your soul. The witches told me to feed my children's father to them." Bishwe? I ended up telling my brother, but then me and him decided not to ever say anything ever again because we don't want her little spirits telling them to do the same thing with us, so...
Story of the time a cop went in my car without my permission. So for a while, I was going to people's houses to do their nails. And I would do this in the summer, so a lot of my clients set up a table outside so that the smell didn't smell up their house too bad. I always feel rude to park in the person's driveway, so I usually park outside of their house on the side of the road. And this time in particular, I did just that, and we did her nails outside as well. At the time, my car had temp plates on it because I had just recently got it. And also, my car is a BMW 2-door with all tinted windows, so you cannot see inside of it even if you try. So I could understand why it looks a little bit suspicious. Luckily for me, my nail client's dog ended up running out of the fence into the front yard, right near my car. So I go with her to chase him, and I see the police officer opening up my car door. And I wasn't parked illegally or anything, and my temp plates weren't expired either. So he had no right to be opening up my car doors. So I ran over to my car and I was like, "What's going on? Why are you searching my car?" And he was like, "This is your car?"
Hey guys, today we're reviewing the Crystal Mud from 5D. This was $7 and it was about 12 ounces. It had a really nice crystal clear color, which I really liked. It did not really have any stretch to it at all. I could stretch it extremely slowly, but then it would barely stretch. It would just kind of, over time, you could see pull. It was really thick, but other than that, just not a great choice. Thumbs down for me.
This is why you should never knock on a stranger's door. Once there was a man trying to check into a hotel. The woman at the front desk gave him his key and told him none of the guests are allowed to go into the room across the hall. He agreed, but as he continued to stay in the hotel, he grew more and more curious about the room he wasn't supposed to go in. At one point, he even walked down the hall to that room and tried the door. It was locked. Then he bent down and looked through the keyhole. He saw that it was just the same as his hotel room. But in the corner of the room, there was a woman whose skin was extremely pale, almost a sickly white. Her back was to the wall, so the man didn't see what she actually looked like. He almost knocked on the door, but then just decided to leave her alone. The next day he walked past the door again and decided to look into the keyhole. This time there was no hotel room and no woman. It was all just red. He thought that this seemed really strange, so he went to the front desk and asked about the room. After insisting on an answer, the woman at the front desk told him, "A long time ago, a man killed his wife in that room, and her ghost is still there. But these ghosts are not what you might imagine. They're completely white all over, except for their eyes, which are red."
In 2014, I followed Taylor Swift on Tumblr, and she followed me back and started liking and reblogging my posts. And then a few days after her 1989 album came out, I got a really weird DM on my personal Twitter. And it was from Taylor Nation, and it said, "Confidential message, hi Alyssa, a friend of ours is sending you a package. It should be arriving to you sometime tomorrow. Let us know when it gets to you. Thanks, winky face." And I was a little bit creeped out because, like, they never asked for my address. I don't know how they found my Twitter. But I was like, cool, they're sending me some merch, it'll be fine. So I texted my mom and told her to look out for something from Taylor Nation, and then she called me the next day, and I was in class, and I had to leave class, and I was like, hello? And she was like, hey, you didn't get anything from Taylor Swift, but FedEx just dropped off this huge package, and it says it's from Nashville, but it doesn't have a return address, and I don't know what it is. So that night, I was in the McDonald's drive-thru, and I got a call from Taylor Nation, and they were like, hey, you were supposed to get a package today. The sender is really concerned that you haven't posted on Tumblr. Part 2. There I am at the McDonald's drive-thru on the phone with Taylor Nation. They said, the sender is really concerned about you not getting the package. And I was like, I'm at college, it's 3.5 hours away, it's basketball season, I have practice every day this week. I can't go home, but my mom has it. Taylor Nation said, okay, great, we're glad it made it there. When can you go home? And I said, well, I can go home on Friday. And they said, great, the sender will be watching your social medias to see your post. So since it said confidential message, I'm still scared to say anything, so I go on Tumblr and make a vague post with no tags that says, Taylor, I'm at college, but I'll be home Friday. And I got a response. She sent me a Santa emoji. As I'm online, I see posts from 3 other people. Guess what they got in the mail? Christmas presents that were hand wrapped from Taylor Swift. So I start freaking out because I have to wait 3 days before I can go home and see what's in this package.
This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door, and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick, and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus, and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified. Part 2 of why sleeping in might just save your life. After talking to the bus driver, my mom came back looking terrified, but she didn't say anything about it and told me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but my mom would end up telling me a few years later. When she went to the second bus, she found out it was being driven by my regular driver and it was full of other kids that are usually on my route. By the way, the other bus was empty. My mom asked the driver about the substitute driver and about him calling in sick. He tells her that he never called in sick and there is no substitute driver on his route. The driver immediately called dispatch in a panic and told my mom to go inside and call the police and report this incident, which she did without me knowing at the time. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would never have made it to school or back home. And if we hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus.
This is why you should never talk to strangers in an elevator. One day, a surgeon was working the night shift at a hospital. He just finished his operation on a patient and was going to the basement. He entered the elevator and there was one other woman already inside. They were casually chatting when the elevator door opened and another woman was about to enter. But the surgeon looked horrified. He quickly slammed